The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
What they're committing here is I call it an act of cultural vandalism. And I think that people miss the point, though, is that what Disney was doing, or at least what the runners of Disney were doing, was deliberate. They were deliberately doing this. They did it with The Little Mermaid. They did it with Peter Pan. They've done it with so many things, injecting all this nonsense into our classic stories. Evita, are they doing this deliberately for a certain agenda?
Well, of course they're doing it deliberately, Jack. And let's start with the name of this film, right? The film is called Snow White. and I'm actually very similar racially to Rachel Ziegler, right? I'm a Hispanic woman as well, kind of white passing, but Hispanic woman. I would not be appropriate for this role. Am I a purely white woman? No, I'm not. And I think everybody is sick of the white erasure that Disney and all these other major studios are engaging in. It's not only bad for white people. I think it's really disrespectful. I think it's part of anti-white racism. It's also bad for Black and brown people. I was thinking about, I don't know if you've seen Brother Bear, Jack, but I watched it with my little brother, Patrick, over Christmas when I was there. It's a great movie. It's about three brothers. They're Inuits. It was just a good story. And instead of making good stories, new stories about real characters or Black and brown characters, they just change white characters into Black and brown characters. And all it does is upset everyone. Nobody wants this. And the other thing that I'll say, Jack, is you're right about this being an attack on Western Civ, because the Snow White story, if you read the original Brothers Grimm's story, is a really fascinating tale about growing old gracefully. It's about female envy and vanity. It has roots in the story of Narcissus and Echo, and even the story of Cain and Abel. So this is like an interconnected web of Western Civ that's now not being added on in a respectful and beautiful way by Disney, but actually corrupted on purpose.
Well, it is corrupted on purpose, and in some of the memes that I was making, I was on Grok this morning, and I was making these snow woke memes. And so one of the first things I did was make sure, of course, to give Snow Woke the pantsuit, because obviously she is an empowered woman who wears a pantsuit, not a dress, like those old princesses. And then I've got her leading the sort of like BLM Antifa mob there. But one of the things in the background that I have also is the castle is on fire. And it's specifically on fire, not just to say we're not liberating the land from an evil queen, we're actually burning the land down. And and by the way, I've seen in some of the trailers that's very clear what she's doing there. She's showing that, so you've got this white queen, right? The queen is still white, right? They didn't swap her. The same way, by the way, in Hamilton, when they race swapped all the founding fathers, they still left King George white. But everybody else got race swapped because they're trying to tell a different story. And whether or not you realize that it's going on, overtly, your brain subliminally still reads it that way because you can see before your eyes what's going on. This is wokeism. This is the definition, Evita, of cultural Marxism.
No, it 100% is. And the castle thing is interesting, Jack, because you could almost view it as an analogy for family and for love, because what's happened in this new Snow White film, if you see the clips of Rachel Zegler talking about it almost 2 years ago, she's saying that we're going to not have Prince Charming save the day, that's super regressive and it's wrong, and there's no consent when she's being kissed. And the problem with this, Jack, is it's feeding into this feminist narrative that's been poisoning women for generations, that you can't fall in love. You can't be dreaming of a Prince Charming because that is not feminist, that's regressive. And it has made so many generations of women really unhappy. When I was growing up, my mom always said to me, you know what, Evita, you should focus on your love life. This is what she said in your young adult years, which would probably shock a lot of people. But it was the greatest advice ever, because I think young men and women need to be focusing on their love lives. They need to be finding one another and getting married and starting families. And instead we're being fed this narrative that women have to, focus on saving the day, saving the kingdom, whatever it is, and being feminist icons and not actually being women. And it was really, I think, interesting about this new narrative with Snow White is she actually has to be more like a man to be a good woman. She can't embody really beautiful feminine heroine characteristics. She has to be more like a man to be a good woman, which actually shows just how disruptive and backward the feminist ideology is.
So, Evita, there's actually a phrase that Joshua Lysek, who was the co-author of Unhumans, the communism book we did last year, that he's used talking about. So he's famous, sort of Twitter famous, I guess. A couple of years ago, he did this thread on Mary Sue's that just completely, obliterated the internet and got everybody really mad at him. And Mary Sue is this female character, for those who don't know, who just kind of shows up on screen and is like super powerful and can do everything, can solve every problem, can beat up people who are like, 20 times their size. And you see this all over media today. And his whole point was, well, wait a minute, this isn't the true essence of being a strong woman. He's married, he's got 3 children. And so he was talking about, the way he described it was this sort of victim gladiator model. This like it's like a victim gladiator where, okay, they experience trauma or something goes wrong and all of a sudden they become a gladiator and they destroy everyone in their path. And that I didn't use the phrase at the time. That was always my criticism of the movie Frozen. And people say, "Oh, well, Jack, how could you go against Frozen?" I said, "Well, wait a minute. All of the male characters in Frozen are either in her way, they're either stupid and bumbling, or they are in fact secretly lying or villains. And then you have 2 women pairing up to fight all the men. And if you can't see that as very obviously playing into this sort of like war of the sexes kind of narrative, then I just don't think you understand basic media literacy or how to analyze things or view things through a critical lens. Things happen when you deal and change the traditional stories and archetypes that have existed for hundreds of years. And there's a reason that we still like Snow White, even though it is literally 200 years old, because it speaks to actual reality and actual experience. But when you mess around with that, especially for kids, we wonder why everyone is so screwed up now.
Well, Jack, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And there is a real vacuum. It doesn't exist anymore. Female heroine stories, they're not around, and there's a reason for that. The reason is they don't want to have that to present that narrative with young women. They want to have this feminist girl boss narrative. And I would look, and people don't like anime. They say it's demonic. I'll say anime does a great job, at least the Studio Ghibli anime films, of presenting female heroines who use female traits, feminine traits to save the day. Snow White, just take Snow White, for instance, right? She's cooking and she's cleaning and she's creating a home for the dwarves and she's making a refuge for herself, but also a home for them. And she's charming and she's beautiful and she draws the prince in, who then saves her because he falls in love with her. These are feminine, beautiful traits. She saves the day with her attitude, with her goodness, with her sweetness. That's not at all the kind of feminine characters that are being presented now. And I think it's really kind of shameful to make women who actually embody feminine characteristics feel bad about that they're not good women. Really, like I said, it's very regressive.